Hi, my name is Cathy Sabater. I'm a mortgage planner and proud veteran. I'm here with an outstanding realtor in the Austin area, Terrence Hunley. Terrence, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been chit-chatting along, and one of the things we were talking about is no one wants to talk about COVID, but we're in a COVID world. We're either transitioning out of it, and hopefully the variant allows us to continue living a certain lifestyle. I know for myself, I'm still not going out as much as I usually do. But with that being said, Terrence, why do you think we're having this real estate boom in regards to COVID?
Yeah, it's like you said, COVID did make a big difference because what COVID did, it did two things. First of all, it forced all of us to stay in our homes. So whenever you stay in your home, all of a sudden it might not be as big as you want it to be. You find out you have less space than you need. Second of all, it forced our jobs to kind of figure out, wait, we don't have to have everybody coming to the office all the time. And working from home has become this huge thing now. So now we're seeing people who are just leaving where they were because they thought they were stuck to where their job was. And now they can be closer to family. They can go to a different area that they've always wanted to live in and still keep the same job without having to be tethered to an office.
Right. And that's an interesting concept because I know certain people are like, hey, I want to get my job that's close to my job. But I'm like, well, how long are you going to be in that job? 15 years? Because life is not like it used to be, right? There are people who have been in their job for 15, 20 years and stayed in the same location. But we live in a more transient world, right? 3 to 5 years, I believe, is what most people do, because at that point, either you're not making as much money and you have to move to the next step. So the interesting thing about that, because if you're in Austin, there's a lot of activity happening, not only in the inner city, but also in the suburban area, right? So if you were considering, like we're trying to have people try to think out of the box, either move to another state as a primary or buy as an investment. What's your insight on that?
Yeah, Austin is one of those kind of multifaceted type of areas, right? You can have several different things that you want. Obviously, you have the big city life right in the center, wherever you can get. That's where some of the $1 million homes are at. You also have the condos that you can live in, things like that. Or you can kind of keep going out till we have suburbs like Round Rock, Georgetown, Leander, things like that. That where you can get the more suburban style, your standard 3-2, 4-2 type homes are sitting out there. Or you can even go all the way out to places like Temple, Belton, and other things wherever. Like I've currently got a listing that has a horse property on it. So it's there. We have basically every kind of style of living you want to find in the area, whether it's lakefront or you just want a bunch of acreage. It's all kind of right here in the Austin area. So it makes for good vacation rental home type investment styles or just a place to live. So you have all sorts of options whenever you're thinking about Austin.
And then the interesting thing is there are a lot of Californians moving to Texas. That's not a surprise. I mean, there has been a little bit of migration, but I think with what you just spoke about makes it easier, because if I have a home here or I'm priced out here to buy, I can then more than likely get a house or condo at maybe half the price of what's going here. And if I get to keep my income, wow.
Exactly. Like we were talking a bit earlier, you'd mentioned kind of your median price points can all of a sudden be somewhere in the $700,000 to $800,000 range. In all of the areas here, it's around 350, 450. Our highest is right around the 500 mark. So when you just consider that, that's already a big drop. And it's not just Californians moving here in general. It is the Californian businesses, Tesla, these other places are coming here. Big reason, we don't have a state income tax. So all of a sudden you get to keep a little bit more of your money than you thought you did. So that's kind of another reason that Texas is kind of bringing all of these companies, is because it kind of changes the way that they can do business.
Got it. And so you had mentioned that property taxes, or rather no state taxes, but your property taxes are a little higher than ours, right? But I think it kind of offsets what we're doing, because if you have no state tax, and this is for you as far as your income is concerned, and then even if your property taxes are higher, that's a lot of that is tax deductible.
Right. So because we also have a homestead exemption to where if it is your primary place of residence, you do kind of get tax breaks there as well. It is kind of an interesting dynamic. So, but yeah, the biggest surprise anybody that's been coming from California has had, it's like the property taxes were a bit higher than they were expecting. Right. But every state's going to get their money somehow. It just kind of depends on where they're getting it.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that there's homestead. So homestead means that the state provides you a certain credit based on where you're at, just to say thank you for being a primary homeowner. Okay. If your investment, you don't get that credit. Okay. It's not much, but you know me, if I can save $1 here to buy something there, I'm happy about it. Right.
Right. Every dollar
So
counts.
exactly. And so when we were talking about people and companies coming to the Texas area, then it's also changing the culture too, right? Because now it's like before. It's like here we're in San Diego. I'm in San Diego, but California County. We're used to diversity because mostly the military's here, right? And when I said transient, a lot of people come, and mostly because it's the military. Sometimes they're here 2 to 3 years, and then people's jobs they come, and then based on what happens, makes a change as well. What kind of changes are you seeing as far as trending? As you had mentioned, some of the companies like Tesla that are coming over to that Austin area.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely seeing some different areas, different things kind of changing. As far as because obviously you're seeing more different types of people, you're seeing different things kind of pop up. As far as like what people like to do, but something about Austin that's never going to change. We love our music, so that the music's gonna be available everywhere. And then the other thing is, it's just Southern hospitality exists, and it's just a thing. Everybody here just wants to be your friend, right?
Right.
You'll talk to somebody next door, things like that. That was the biggest difference whenever I moved back to Texas from California. Is I had kind of forgotten about Southern hospitality and how just widespread it really is.
Right.
So it's always nice to know your neighbor's going to be there, and the whole go next door for a cup of sugar thing is still a thing.
So then, so basically what happens now is that if you were considering to purchase property, whether it be primary or investment, there's some strategies that you can use, right? Because if it's primary, we had spoken about it. You know, you could go to a place and see if you like it, but again, until you actually live there, you can't really base it, right? Because you have seasons in Austin and California. We have seasons, but really predominantly warm most of the year, right? If it's Christmas time, I could be wearing shorts with a jacket, right? But but let's talk a little bit about the investment, because you did mention, you know, there's not a lot of duplexes or multi-units there because that's not your lifestyle, right? I'm more in the city, so we have more of that here. So tell them about one of the strategies that you have for one of your investments, in whether you want to, you know, live here or make an investment property.
Yeah, so it just kind of reminds me of kind of what happened back in January whenever I
Mhm.
had a California guy looking to move to Austin, but he
Mhm.
wasn't quite ready to just flat out make the jump.
Mhm.
So what he wanted to do first is he wanted to kind of look for an investment style property. So we initially started looking at some single families, but then eventually he's like, "Hey, let's go ahead and let's get a duplex." So I
Mhm.
found an off market duplex for him,
Mhm.
and his whole plan now is he's renting out the duplex. Once one of the leases is up, he's kind of going to take over and he's going to move to Austin to be in that duplex first,
Mhm.
and use that time to kind of explore the area, go around and find a place that he actually feels at home
Right.
to be able to go through, and then he can to purchase his next home. And then whenever he does that, he'll still then turn around and rent out that duplex again, one side of it that he was living in.
Right.
And so it's kind of a way to where you can kind of have your cake and eat it too, kind of start your investment, kind of move here first, kind of figure out what area, what you really want to be,
Right.
and then buy your house after.
Right. And so, and then another food for thought is, you know, I have people saying, hey, I'm going to move to Texas, while you know people who have moved there because of their company. One of the things to consider is say, hey, you know, come stay with me for a little bit, see how you like it. Because right now, most people who are in the buying mode are working remotely, right? Otherwise, they couldn't afford to be looking out of state, because unfortunately, it does take money to make money, right?
Right, right.
Right. So with that being said, you also mentioned that you had a horse property listing. So how far is that from like inner city that this individual gets to live almost two lifestyles, right? Because that's basically what you're saying.
Yeah, for sure. So this property is roughly about hour and a half, depending on where in Austin you are,
Mhm.
specifically which highway you can connect to, things like that. So, and then you're out there, and you have 8 acres to yourself.
Mm.
Very few neighbors, have all sorts of different kind of farm and ranch style options,
Okay.
right out there for you. So it is really kind of interesting how within an hour, basically, you can go from big city living to kind of being more rural and just kind of on the outskirts.
Right.
So that's one thing that is really cool.
And then is there a certain difference in pricing from moving from the inner city? Because 8 acres is still a lot of land, as far as pricing is concerned. How much is your listing going for?
We have it listed at 525,000,
Okay.
and that is mainly land based for the most
Okay.
part,
Mhm.
because the land is kind of where the value is, because
Right.
we only have so much land; it can only go so far, right? So,
Mhm.
but yeah, so it is kind of interesting. Just kind of just to speak to the differences. Whenever we talked about how the inner city, like in Austin, things have kind of slowed down a little bit.
Mhm.
Part of that's because some of the buyers in Austin have kind of been like, you know what, let me go further out. And
Mhm.
so now we're seeing some of the outer skirts kind of hit that boom and have those over asking type options.
Okay, got it.
Whereas the inner Austin is kind of slowing down and being more closer to
Mhm.
at asking. So it's kind of interesting just to kind of watch the trends as it kind of spreads out
Mhm.
around the area.
Right.
And it's kind of fun just to kind of pay attention.
Right. And then you also mentioned off market listing. What does that mean?
So essentially, the off market was just I had kind of I knew someone who was like thinking of selling their investment because they were kind of
Mhm.
like, I don't know if I really want to keep this anymore. Just trying
Mhm.
to kind of unload some of their options, and then I used that to then market out to some of the investors that I knew,
Right.
to be like, hey, I have this opportunity. Would you be interested?
Right.
And this guy kind of jumped at it, and
Okay.
it worked out very well for us.
Right. So then that means the people like me would never even know that they existed unless we knew people like you
Exactly.
to open up the opportunities for us, right? Because that's really sometimes what it means, right?
Yeah, because there are people who don't really want to have the hustle and bustle of putting it on the MLS, the hustle and bustle
Mhm.
of having to have showings.
Right.
Sometimes there's like, hey, who do you know that's wanting to buy something?
Right.
And
Right.
then so then it's a little bit more low key, and so not everybody gets access. It's like who you know rather than
Right.
what you know.
Exactly. Well, listen, it was refreshing speaking with you to cover so many different things. So, um, primary investment property, off market, horse property, 8 acres, 525. You can't get 8 acres here in California for 525, right? There's certain areas here that we have that they have, I think the 2 to 3 maybe. But that's a phenomenal thing because at the end, even though it's a suburban lifestyle with horses, again, it gives you the flexibility to really think out of the box. So, Terrence, what phone number can they reach you at?
Yeah, everybody can reach me at 806-223-7073. And my email is austinrealestatenerd@gmail.com. Got to
Great.
embrace
Well,
that nerd style.
you got it. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
No problem. You have a great day.